Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, yes. I'm Sue Minahan and founding host, astrologer of Talk Cosmos weekly conversations, awakening your authentic self. And today is Sunday, May 29th. And it's during Seattle's annual NORWAC, that's Northwest Astrology Conference. For those that are attending it, Talk Cosmos will be in the library, not the library, in the bookstore in the summit room. And for those that might be in the area, you can come over to it. You can't go to the lectures, it's sold out, but you can visit, you can look at the books and that type of thing. And we have a bookmark. So come see us and connect and subscribe for Talk Cosmos, YouTube. And we're also, as many of you know, on all favorite apps and 1150 KNW YouTube and online formats. So like us. And we look forward to connecting this continuing season of the 5th season of Talk Cosmos. Today, wherever you might be, our subject involves a very mutable subject, which is the Gemini New Moon. And it's 9 degrees and 3 minutes. You'd round that off to 10 if it's Sabian Symbols, such as my little thing said. And we are, with our subject, recreating alliances. So let's find out what Archetypal Symbols panel that we're ready now for will say about that. Thank you.
Synthesizing the current archetypal new moon energies through weaving symbol systems such as Sabian Symbols, numerology, Mayan novel energy days, or even Tarot, connecting to the astrological data and concepts for planets and cosmos. This is your Archetypal Symbols panel.
I'm Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary and eclectic astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing esoteric fields of eternity, a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of bodies, spirit of people, animals, and nature. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, poetry to stories, and celebrate humanity's individuated, co-creative life force experience.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Machette, a professional astrologer, intuitive, numerologist, and tarot reader. I'm a certified sacred healing counselor, providing nurturing, in-depth consultations for individuals and couples. I'm an author, blogger, speaker, and international Reiki master and teacher. I create safe space in which to explore the deeper patterns of your life, to clarify your current circumstances and help you find your best path forward.
I'm Justin Crocodelsey, an archetypal astrologer, teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology. And I specialize in predictive, electional, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I'm a certified aromatherapist, an essential oil specialist, and an herbalist, and I offer remedial modalities of plants for psychological life issues to empower clients with compassionate healing. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift." And that's why it's called the present. Let's open it up. Let's find out what it has. So it's a 9 degree, 3 minute new moon in Gemini. So the moon and the sun are together at the same point, and it happened at 7:30 on the East Coast, 4:30 on the West Coast at Pacific time. And if you're in London, which is British summertime, it would be at 12:30 in the afternoon. which we are expanding because last week we had Israel Ahosi on, and there's people that are listening. So wherever you are, then that's also UT time, so you can figure that one out. It is transitional energies. Shall we start with the numerology? Who wants, Liz or Justin?
Go ahead, Liz. Go ahead, Liz.
Thanks. Yes. So the sun and moon are at 9 degrees. So I chose the number 9. And the number 9 is about bringing things to a conclusion and finishing things up so that you can start again. And if we rounded the number off to a 10, it'd be a 1. So it's new beginnings.
Boy, that is hand in hand, isn't it? With recreating alliances. And Justin, you always have thoughts about numbers.
Yeah, I totally agree with Liz. And, that 9 is about completion, but it has a very Neptunian feel about the group structure. It's the last number. It's the bigger picture. And paired with the 3, the 9-3, it really speaks to what the Gemini moon is about, communications in the group, because 3 is the number of expression and communication. So it's expression of our expression within the group structure.
Well, I like this analysis and insight with the numerology, particularly because at this moment, Mercury is still retrograde. It won't go direct until the 3rd, of June. And so we're in that very introspective time, while it went from Gemini back to Taurus. Yes. Oh, you're adjusting something. I thought you had your hand up there, Justin.
No, I'm looking at the Sabian symbols as we're doing
this.
Okay,
that's fine. Yes, Liz.
The tarot card that goes with the 9 is the Hermit, which is Virgo and is ruled by Mercury. So we're bringing that Mercury energy back in. And then the Gemini tarot card is the Lovers, and that's the number 6. So we're getting the 6 and the 9. And I know Justin wanted to add something about the 3.
Well, I it's on the 30th. So that's the 3-0 is very powerful when it comes to communications. 3 represents expression. It's, when we look at the 3 in the tarot, it's about the growth of the suit. So it's expression of how we are expressing ourselves in the group.
And so really, go ahead.
Well, it's like we've talked about the 9, the 6, and the 3. And so I always do the 3, 6, 9 is the 3 is the first cycle of completion, the 6 is the second, and the 9 is the third cycle. So it's like working on all those cycles, but then bringing it to conclusion at the same time too.
Yeah, special layers. Go ahead.
And I was going to say one more thing about the numerology, because if you add up the numbers of the day, the 5 plus the 3 plus the 2 plus the 2 plus 2, it adds up to 14, which is a 5, which is very Gemini-like number. It represents change and youthfulness and that childlike wanting to explore. That's very Gemini-like. And so I think it adds in, new opportunities there, that 5 energy.
This is exciting, because Gemini does gather information. So it's going to be collecting on some terms, maybe not doing something deliberately with it right at that moment, but it's fodder, you could say. That's so true. So if we should we look at the chart? Maybe that would be a good idea. All right. Nope, here we are. So we have this chart, because amazingly, it is without really a lot of aspects. The new moon right up there. This is on the eastern, and we put it for the East Coast because we are that's where the capital is, and it constitutes the whole nation in a sense, our energies, but it would change, of course, wherever you live. But nevertheless, the moon and sun really haven't any aspects, Ptolemaic. Help me, I'm not saying that right.
Ptolemaic
aspects, which happen to be the conjunction, the sextile, conjunction together, sextile of 60, degrees, the square of 90, or the opposition of 180. The only thing it has is a square there to Juno, the wife of Jupiter, the right up here, this little starry gal, as we can see over there. And she is alliances, loyalty. What are we married to?
Well, did you want to read the, did you want to talk about first the Sabian symbol for this sun and moon?
Good idea. Let's do that.
Because it actually talks about a little bit about relationship, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I will. Now, Liz, which one? Shall we start with the 9, the 10, or the 11?
The 9.
Okay, a quiver filled with arrows. And this is and we might say Sabians for folks were in 1925. Mark Edmund Jones, an astrologer, with Elsie Wheeler got together, and it's a spiritual context that is used more and more increasingly to give an insightful representation. And it is symbolic, so it's really a matter of how does one interpret it. And there are astrologers that continue to interpret it. And this particular one, looking from the notes, is getting to the point, a clearer message.
And Justin probably has something to add.
Yeah, well, I always love to kind of, support what you say there, Liz, because I agree with you on so much stuff here. And I'm going to go back to the 8 degrees just for just to kind of give some background here, because it talks about aroused strikers surrounded factory. And Dane Rudyard's keynote on that is that it's the disruptive power of the ambitious mind upon the organic wholeness of human relationship. So I think that's what kind of comes into before we talk about that, that quiver that this is about, as both of you have been talking about here, this communications and relationship.
If we look at current events without even getting political, we realize that there are numerous traumas depending on where one is in the world or how one thinks politically. And regardless of how you think politically, something is traumatic in the days that we've been living and the days we are. And besides even COVID. So what I'm getting at is that other Sabians too, just from what I looked at, there is, I think what I'm tying together with what we're all saying, but with this one in particular, is that we're coming from a point where humanity has been really trying to exert itself without much regard. I think it'll show evident later with nature or with others, and it's disruptive. That's what I'm picking up right here.
Yes.
Would you? Okay,
I agree with
where
that.
are we headed?
Yeah.
If we came from 8 and we're in 9 right now, I'll read it. A quiver filled with arrows. Okay, so we're getting to the point, and it's a clear message, so we're getting that information, right? We're going to figure it out. But 10 really gives us maybe where we're... Liz, go ahead with this.
Oh, an airplane performing a nosedive. And I had to really contemplate that one for a little bit, but my little take on it was that we're facing our consequences. And I would assume, a pilot has to learn how to do a nosedive and recover from that. So that would be part of training. But at first it seems kind of scary, but it's not, because you need to know the ins and outs of your airplane.
Well, there was, I will add really quickly, my husband was just reminding me, a terrible event in China, and it was a deliberate nosedive. So I will say that there could be a point of no return, depending on that. So it is a danger.
Yeah, and Dane Rudyard's take on that quiver filled with arrows was what you were just talking about there, Sue. His keynote on it was that it represents that in Gemini, that arrow or that quiver filled with arrows, a man's aggressive relationship to natural life as a basis for survival and conquest. So there seems to be here sort of this very strong mental power and communications power and conquest. And then the nosedive, Dane Rudyard, just to back up what Liz was saying, he talked about it as a superior ability to challenge nature and play with danger. So it's sort of this mind versus matter, aspect that kind of overlays on what Liz was just saying there.
And I this is very appropriate because, if you look at this new moon in Gemini, it has depth to it to say, really, to think through with some clarity the best one can, or gather information to understand better where what we need to recalibrate, what needs to be refocused on. And if we have new alliances coming up, like here in this chart with Juno representing what are we attached to, perhaps it's not all our mind and us against nature, working with nature. And then, of course, we have those big, powerful Neptune in its own sign of Pisces, and Jupiter that just conjunct, and I think Mars just conjunct Jupiter. So there's the influences are definitely with the activation of Mars and the big expansion vision of Jupiter and Neptune that dissolves everything, trying to say, look, let's figure out how we're related with nature and spirit again.
Right, making a new relationship with, I'm going to make a better effort to recycle more, as an example. It's like making new relationships with that. And then Juno is sextile to Uranus, so Uranus is wanting to help us make those changes.
And what was that? My camera froze. What was that again, Liz? I'm sorry.
Juno is sextile to Uranus.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, Justin, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think, when you look at this, I've been telling clients that with this Jupiter moving into Aries and conjuncting Mars, and then of course with this Gemini, it's a very action-oriented thing going on here. There's going to be a quickening of energy, sort of this, really, it's the speeding up with that Aries and Gemini energy together. I think it's very action oriented. I don't know if you all agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. And chaotic. I think that is part of maybe what we need to accept. I know I was pulling my own cards on various issues, and it said, you know what? It made me realize part of my own resistance was the fact that I was dealing with some chaos, that things weren't as orderly as I'd hoped, that things kept coming into my life that I hadn't necessarily invited. But that doesn't mean that it's going to derail us. It just means that we're in turbulent waters. Because yes, I'd say with Mars, it is an activation, as we know. And in Aries, its own sign, it's a fire sign. It's instinctive. It just reaches for what it desires. It doesn't stop and think. It just moves. That's the beauty of it. But also, and with Jupiter, it expands anything. So, and what with air, right here in Hawaii, we've had a lot of big wind. And I was trying to look at the charts to say, but I know that Mars is conjunct. Well, this was actually a while back, where Mars is conjunct Uranus. But right now, today, Mars is conjunct Jupiter. So air and fire can be wind and heat.
Well, I'm wondering if that's some of the fires, because there's been fires in New Mexico and Texas and the Panhandle, and those are just the ones that I'm hearing about. And so it's like there's, be careful with fire.
Fire is to be respected. I remember in the mythology, Prometheus was severely punished by Zeus, the great god of the heavens, of all the gods, and because he gave fire to mankind, because mankind was just a little piece of clay from Earth, but he gave fire. And I was been thinking about that. I just saw a note on it, but I think really it's that whole idea that if humanity can respect the spirit and the fire within that we have, not think that we are the total fire, but that we're part of the whole spirit and fire of the world. You know, kind of like the early native cultures, wherever they might have been, were very thankful, gratitude.
Yeah. I think, like we were reading that Gemini 10 degrees, of that moon and sun, that airplane performing a nosedive is really is sort of this risk taking, right? And I think that's energies coming really into play now that I'm telling, I'm people that this is going to be a really good time when a lot of people are going to be starting new projects. It's a good time to start new projects. That Aries beginnings and initiation, it's a good time for getting things going, really,
Especially with the Uranus that you were bringing up, Liz, too. Thinking about both of this, because Uranus is the unexpected, and the planet itself goes sideways and backwards, which is totally unexpected. But it is, just speaking astrologically, we have it conjunct that North Node where we're headed, and what's in tension with it is our structures that we're recalibrating, that Saturn, just to repeat in a different way, what to support.
The Mars and Jupiter can assist in doing new things because it can show us new opportunities, and maybe like we have a plan and we're going towards a certain direction, but then something else comes in. So Mars is always willing to try new things and not have to think too much about it. It's just like, oh yeah, I'll try that. So I call it really trailblazing energy. They're willing to try different things, and one of them might just stick. It's in Jupiter, I would think, would help that. So,
yeah.
And, maybe give energy to be able to do some of the things. Cause, a few months back, I was pretty tired for a while, but now I'm recouping my energy. It's coming back every week stronger and stronger. So
Same
I don't know
here.
if you've
Same
had that.
here. Yeah, I've heard from quite a few. In fact, maybe it was the Pisces. So much dissolving, so much needing to kind of. Justin, do you have some thoughts about that?
No, I agree with both what you're both saying, and I think it's we're moving from that Pisces 12th house to that Aries first house, and it's going to be definitely a time very good for entrepreneurship, starting new projects. But with Jupiter, there's again a caution about burning out, right? That because that Jupiter will magnify that Aries aggressiveness. So
one other thought is that there's a lot of fixedity in the chart. In other words, the energies right now. And I'm thinking with all this burst and this dynamic urge to move and expand and direct, there's a certain amount of resistance because, as I'm saying, the nodes are in fixed signs, and Saturn's that's intention is in a fixed sign. So it is internal still. There's a great deal of internal work working with all of this. It isn't just where we're maybe wanting to go out, especially with Gemini is a yang sign, but the others there's still kind of a struggle.
And pace yourself. And then I want to go to the Sabian symbol for the midheaven and Juno, because they're both at 12 degrees, because they play in to this chart, an examination of initiates in the sanctuary of an occult brotherhood. So it's like you have to prove what you know. And to me, it felt like just being able to know what you know and what you don't know.
That's wisdom.
Yeah, and that segment I find, Liz, and with that particular segment of Sabian Symbols, also there's sort of this motivation with that segment of the Sabian Symbols that it's speaking to the need to have some sense of certification and from others and from the collective. So there's sort of this reaching up, that brotherhood, helping the initiative and reaching up towards accomplishing something and getting a certain level of certification. And with Juno, I think Juno's in the 10th house there, right? So that's
Yes.
so that highlights that status, or one's position or role or status within the collective, the 10th house. I think we'll be highlighting that,
So is it going to 13, Liz? And Justin?
And then the next one would be 13, an ancient sword used in many battles, displayed in a museum. So there's like to show the history, when it was appropriate to pick up the sword, perhaps. So that's moving to the 13th degree in Pisces there.
So, okay. And of course, Pisces is ruled by both Jupiter and Neptune. And it's interesting that if it's a sanctuary and a cult, brotherhood, in other words, it kind of references this whole idea again. I keep repeating, this idea of our alliances. Who are they with? It's not just who makes for some reason I think of making a key, and it's a locksmith. You want to make a key for the locksmith. Well, yes, you need the locksmith to make the key, but yet for some reason I'm thinking more esoterically or symbolically what that key would be for. The key to open up this linkage with the people of our common minds, because Saturn is an Aquarius. It wants that common, like NORWAC. The thing about that conference is they're all astrologers, so there is that like-mindedness on some level.
It's time for our break.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I don't know if I tied up any thoughts here, except that this is the 29th of May. The new moon will be tomorrow. Today, we're talking with Archetypal Symbols with Justin Crockett-Elsie and Elizabeth Liz Mouchette. We'll see you in a moment. Thank you. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the period of Gemini. By leaving a cycle based on physical form, integrated through spirit, the energy of Gemini connects spirit with matter, focused on communicating and defining the external. Gemini is a mutable air sign signifying flexibility. Gemini dually focuses upon teaching and learning in order to synthesize the world one lives within.
Hi, it's Dr. Laura Tad, and I wanted to let you know about my course in personal mythology. Now offered as a self-paced online class, you can explore the stories you live by and those you have inherited from your ancestors, culture, and society. This course comes with 8 30-minute check-ins with me as you move through each of the modules. Enrollment is ongoing. For more information or to register, please go to my website, mythicsky.com.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Hello, this is Madam Simon, archetypal astrologer and tarot reader, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness.
Don't let that herd mentality lead you off a cliff. We support thinking for yourself on Alternative Talk 1150.
Hi, and welcome back, everybody. Thank you for listening and tuning in and liking Talk Cosmos. And we'll continue with our new moon in Gemini at 9 degrees. It's rounded off to 10, but it is 9 degrees and 3 minutes. And we're with archetypal symbols, we look at it through the lens involving the Sabian symbols, these symbolic references and numerology. And so, interestingly, I'm wondering maybe we should talk about Saturn or Mercury, because they're actually in tension to each other with these two that are really dynamic with our direction. So, Liz, should we start with or Justin?
Can I say one thing really quickly? Can we I kind of wanted just to kind of finish up where we were last on that midheaven in Juno, because I was looking, ladies, at the next degree or that last degree of 15, which is valorization. So it and as we look at the midheaven is ultimately what a person's trying to accomplish or what that pinnacle is. And it seems to me with Juno and Pisces that there's some level of trying to, that whatever we're doing, this action and this quickening is for something that's greater than ourselves. That Piscean sacrificing and qualification and trying to align with something that's more spiritual or more socially aware, I don't know. What do you all think about that?
Oh, that supports everything that I've been saying. It also goes along with recreating alliances. I love how you express that, Liz.
And if it's okay, can we go to the ascendant next, because it talks about being in tune with nature, and we were kind of talking about the natural influences in nature. So the ascendant is 3 Cancer. A man bundled in fur leads a deer. So to me, that was about using our instincts to overcome and move forward. It's like you have animal instincts almost in a way to be able to tune in.
And we need to remember that. Yes, exactly. We are a mammal. This whole idea since the Greeks, when they took their mythology and divorced themselves from the animals, which I can understand. It was a rough world. People had to elevate and try to have a civilization. But again, it was like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. No, I agree.
And, I like the next two on that one, that it's telling us kind of at the same time, I feel there's like a caution there, because that next one, which is a cat arguing with a mouse, the 4 degrees Cancer, it's really about that emotional justification. I always like to tell people the cat arguing with the mouse Sabian symbol reminds me of Tom and Jerry. Oh, you're supposed to eat me. No, I'm not supposed to. So there's sort of this emotional rationalization to how we're moving forward. And then, of course, the 5 degrees, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, is a railroad crossing. An automobile was wrecked by a train. And it's sort of like I'm trying to rationalize emotionally what's happening here, and there may be where my rationalization is different than everybody else. It's sort of banging up against sort of the wall there.
Consequences of actions, I think, is what Liz had put down, and that's exactly right. And just think, during this Mercury retrograde time, when we're rethinking, reevaluating, reviewing everything, how perfect to be arguing with a mouse and wondering, but that where we're headed is thinking about not just the pros and cons, but the consequences, or as you had said, rationalizing. Yes, that's so in tune with this whole Gemini information.
Well, lots of times when arguing's going on, you're not hearing the other person, and if you can have it be constructive that you hear the other person, lots of times it's like, oh, that's what I wanted to do anyway, but you were so arguing that you couldn't hear them say what they were saying.
Oh, I love it. Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
So now we could go on to Mercury and Saturn, if you like.
Sure. Which one?
Well, Mercury 26 is a Spanish gallant, serenades his beloved.
You have shared feelings, which seems
Right.
very appropriate.
And communicating.
Yeah, so that's where we're coming from. That's what we're coming from, is this point of a gallant. A gallant. Now, I suppose that's a military person. It's not a gallant person, but it would be a military, or nonetheless, it's someone of authority, right? Some kind of official title, yes. But trying to connect, I guess, by sharing their feelings, yes. So
I think so. What about you, Justin?
Well, I agree. I agree. You know, it's sort of what Dane Rudyard talked about, the ritualization of individual desires, or the role playing, that, you know, a person's supposed to act a certain way, and how we relate to others, that we kind of fall into that. You know, the Spanish gallant serenades his beloved, sort of a role we play.
Yeah, think of like, for instance, Sergio de Bergerac, you know, who I was thinking of this, the role playing. When you talk about role playing, that it's like, that's exactly what the times are trying to figure out. What is appropriate to how we manage our relationships, and how do we redefine so much that we can connect deeper and more pure, and get away from what artificial roles that may have been operating in a world that needed that kind of distinction. But now times are changing, where the equality is becoming between individuals, whatever one's sexuality. It's on a more level field. And so opportunities everywhere are open to anybody. And so we can be more authentic, you know, to be ourselves. So when you say role, which distinctly comes to my mind when I think of a Spanish gallant serenading to their beloved, is so antiquated. Yes.
And what's your take on the next degree, Liz?
An older Indian woman selling beads or trinkets. And I know in Rudgar's, he says that she's selling artifacts. And it's like, okay, you know, why would you sell your artifacts? Do you need financial help? Or, you know, it's interesting because I kind of look at Linda Hills too. And I like, you know, selling beads, because they Native Americans usually have different beads that they use, or crafts and stuff. But then when it was the artifacts, it's like, well, those would be more valuable.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So
how does that go? Let's continue with that expansion a little bit, if I can, because it's in Mercury. This is the energy that Mercury in Taurus. Of course, it's a kind of going forward now, going back. It's just left 26, which it had, you know, started to go direct. Well, it's still retrograde. Yeah, we're still retrograde. That's right.
Well, and Mercury rules commerce too. So she's selling something. So that's, you know, Mercury rules that already.
Yeah.
And we often don't think of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I like how it goes from a individual, what our role is, to now we're kind of dealing with that commerce and the collective, you know, and focusing more on the collective communications, of course, and how, you know, the collective we're involved in the collective from a Taurus perspective.
Well, and that Mercury is conjunct the North Node. So possibly people will have different ways to make money. Their jobs could be changing, new ways of communicating. I mean, we're already getting into electrical cars. I mean, we're on the road to that. So it's like, what other kind of things?
Well, let's look at the North Node then. That's 22 degrees Taurus. And of course, it goes retrograde. as a natural cycle. Or so in other words, it'll go from 22 to 21. But 22 Taurus is a white dove flying over troubled waters. So you could overcoming crisis. And then the next one is 21 Taurus. I'm reading the notes from what Liz provided. A finger pointing to a line in an open book, which you put down as discern. So again, this has very mercurial ideas, even though it is in Taurus. We're in Mercury right now. That's the planet that is in those particular signs as it goes back to its final resting point at 26 Taurus. But
well, we could look at a page in a book, and the three of us, it could mean something completely different to each of us.
So there's a lot of communication yet to be had, isn't there?
Yeah.
And you know, information coming in.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Liz, because it's, Dane Rudyard, because we know that Taurus is about values, and he talks about this sort of that 21 degrees is about discerning what values really are meaningful to you personally. And so you talk about how we three could look at the same thing and see it differently, that it's really about kind of discerning about again, what's meaningful to each of us personally.
And I like this going back earlier to what you had said about there's with Mars and Jupiter, which we're experiencing now, so much coming in that it's just like, I had put chaotic, with just energy coming in, because there are going to be lots of voices. Jupiter wants a lot of voices and a lot of people expressing differently their view on everything. So let's look at Saturn and see what the authority master of how he's breaking his rhythm in Aquarius. Aquarius, is the new rhythm. It breaks things up.
Okay, so 25 Aquarius is a butterfly with the right wing more perfectly formed. So learning to compensate to create balance.
No, because so that's where it's coming from. It's still trying to return to same old in a way, or at least make it functionable under duress, you could say. So where's it headed to? 26 Aquarius, a garage man testing a car's battery with a hydrometer, part of routine maintenance. So I suppose, would you say that would be as though, it's part of the fix-it business, isn't it? Because if you have a broken wing, you're trying to find out, okay, how can we repair? Or what would you say? What would you both say?
Well, we've been compensating with COVID, and now we're getting back out there, and maybe we haven't done the repairs to our house or the repairs to the car or the repairs that our own body needs. I mean, we could have been putting off a surgery perhaps that didn't need immediate attention, but it needs some attention. So I would say it's like kind of review, and all this information coming in, and Mercury's retrograde, and it seems to me like always a lot more information comes in with Mercury retrograde, and it's like, so it's these repeating themes throughout this chart of, I would say, take the time to process it all.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've had a couple of clients recently that are dealing with issues in the collective, because we know that Aquarius rules the 11th house of the collective, and they're wanting to run away from it, but they can't because Saturn's saying, no, you got to stay here, be disciplined, and deal with these things. And Dane Rudyard talks about these 2 degrees as sort of this, what you're speaking to, Liz, of finishing up with transformation of this air, emotional energies and mental efficiency, and kind of clearing out the house, of that. And I think in a lot of ways, Saturn's causing for some people sort of this, you've got to just stick with it. You can't really run away. You got to deal with that Aquarian energies.
Yeah. Still be accountable is what I'm getting, is be accountable and responsibility. I like how the practicality comes through from what you're both saying. And you starting with Liz, because I would not have identified that. To me, a butterfly is, oh, I'm flying around and I got a little trouble here. Where's my wand? But yours telling me, hey, it's a different concept. So there's hope.
Well, and I'd like us to go to Mars and Jupiter next, because we've been talking about them a lot. So Mars is at 3 degrees, so we're going to start there at 3 Aries. A cameo shows the profile of a man that suggests the outline of his country. And, I had to think about that one because, of course, what they say in the book, it's like I still have to think about it. So I came up with seeing the whole picture and how the pieces fit together.
Oh, a cameo. Now, a cameo is beautiful. Immediately, that shows, the oval, and it's very old. It was what people used to have. I think their portraits of their beloved, their mother, their wife, there's somebody in it. Yes. But this has a profile of a man that suggests the outline of his country. That's most amazing. I think of like the Scots or the Irish or the Welsh had their coat of arms, right? The arms, but it's a picture that would show, but I don't know if any of that. Justin, how would you see?
Well, I'm going to bring this up because sometimes I find the Sabian symbols can be so literal to certain things happening. For example, not last year, but during the election year, there was a Sabian symbol right around the time when Biden picked Kamala Harris. It was the Sabian symbol was speaking to at that particular time about a woman introduces her white lover to the tribe, and now we've got this the cameo profile of a man suggesting the shape of his country. You still there?
Yes.
Okay. And so this kind of brings to me kind of what's happening with the whole Ukrainian thing. This is quite literally, we've got 2 leaders here that have a sense of the profile of their country, and so I think sometimes these Sabian symbols can be so literal to real world situations. So the cameo profile of a man suggesting the shape of his country, I think, is you could bring in the concept of Putin or Zelensky here, and how that Jupiter Aries conjunction may play into certain real world events.
Thank you. I had forgotten to plug in, speaking of energy, and I kind of deleted for a moment, but I came in right at the punchline. Thank you, Justin and Liz. Well, let's move right into 4 Aries, 2 lovers, strolling.
I made a mistake.
We're scrolling. I like that word. Let's scroll through life. Yeah. Okay, we're strolling on a secluded walk, taking time out.
And for each other.
Oh, so in other words, we're not caught up in their drama. These political people, which you were aptly mentioning, because we have to get grounded. We do live in a world that has unknown factors that are happening, and but meanwhile, we don't have to be totally consumed by it. Maybe is that it? We can still meditate or try to become who we are, to share in this world who we are. Is that one way of looking at it? Maybe.
Sure. And, just taking time out for your loved one.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have relationships, I always feel like relationships need to be nurtured. And if you don't spend time together, how are you going to nurture it?
Right. And, when we look at Aries energy, it's very all about me. I always love that country song. I want to talk about me. That's very Aries like, and we see this first one, the we're talking about an individual person seeing the shape of his country. And then we move to relationship here. So the Aries, a lot of time, the opposite, which is that Libra. I feel that this was kind of telling us, like you're saying, Liz, we have to pay attention to the other. We have to pay attention to those relationships, and it's not all about me. That Aries wanting that independence, you know.
Oh,
Exactly.
beautiful. Oh,
And
you guys are great. Mhm.
And I did go another degree because, Mars was at 3 and Jupiter was at 4. And so the 5 Aries is a triangle with wings. So I called it transcending, reaching for a higher level.
Oh, the butterfly got its wing. Okay.
No, this is a triangle with wings.
Oh, a triangle. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's work on that one. That sounds good. Okay. What are your thoughts? Transcending, reaching a higher level. Well, it goes back to that 3, doesn't it, a bit? As we were talking about very earlier, the 3, 9, 6, 9. We know that 3 is 3 levels. There's so much in our world that has past, present, future, or on a spiritual basis. There's many, many ways. And then again, the 3, 6, 9, which expands on. And here we have a triangle, 3 sides.
Well, if we put it in context of like that, where everybody's kind of at right now, and that Jupiter Aries energy, people are going to want to go out, do it themselves, that very Aryan energy. But I think the universe here is saying, there's a way of looking at it, working with others, that as we start these new projects, as we do these things right now, that it's about, as Liz was saying, a new dimension, a new way of looking at it, and working with others versus always trying to do it ourselves, like that Aries energy, I don't know what you think about that.
It's a recurring theme I'm hearing both of you expand on that I so much enjoy, because Gemini, rooting it back to Gemini, is, rules the natural 3rd house. And it's not just about the self, it's about the sibling. And it's about also, if you look at Mercury, or the twins, it was the mortal and the immortal. So it's really about the interior of spirit with matter. So here it is again. You keep bringing up the, not just the self, but coordinate, connect.
Well, that kind of speaks to your theme, recreating alliances.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it does. Which is an unknown factor. I don't know where I put that here, but I did read, maybe it was in the very beginning, I think, of this one, going back, because I was noting a bit here, but it is where 11 Gemini, I don't know if we got to 11 because it was 9, 10 and I mixed up, but if we went to 11, would that be safe? Well, it would be, yeah, because, okay, it would be. Then it's really new beginnings. It was newly opened lands offer the pioneer new opportunities for experience. And the key word, according to David Rudhar, which I love, his mandalas, is the power and joy of new beginnings. So it's facing unfamiliar where anything can happen. And it's individualization, that virgin field of consciousness and activity. Wow, what a great world for Gemini to be jumping into. I mean, I think that's a good promise.
If you hadn't told me that was the Gemini Sabian symbol, I would have said, wow, that sounds like an Aries Sabian symbol.
Oh.
No, new beginnings.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But that's an interesting thought. It's always on everything level, right? Because, well, I'm thinking of Aries is so much for identity and it's totally unknown, but you're right. Here it is. And I wonder if that's 11 because it goes in the next decan. Do you think so? It would be from Gemini to you know more about the decans here, but it would
Libra.
be the Libra decans, but still that doesn't, but it would be unknown. The other person is an unknown quantity, right? I mean, it's not us.
Well, and it's really interesting because we still have quite a bit of fixed energy in this chart, but it's asking us to have all these, to me, it's asking us, the Sabian symbols are really talking about cardinal initiation, starting things, a new beginning, fresh starts, and how we partner with people. I mean, on every level you can think of.
Yep.
Oh, what a beautiful way to surmise this delightful conversation with the both of you. This is, and I'm Sue Minahan of Talk Cosmos, and I'm speaking with Archetypal Symbols panel with Justin Crockett-Elsie, archetypal astrologer, and Liz Mushat, professional astrologer also of many fields. And we'll be at NORWAC today on the 29th still, so come check us out. And what new beginnings? We don't know what new beginnings, we just know there are new beginnings. Any last thoughts? I think we have a second here.
See you next month for the new moon in
Oh,
Cancer.
well, that'll be the solstice too happening. Yeah, there's many changes, aren't there? Well, we're in for the ride. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.